Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are here to pay the bills, presented by Picasso's Pizza. Jake Micah, joined as always by my co-host Mike Bunt, and we are here. We are 8 days away from the opening of training camp, and it's time. We're picking the roster tonight, Mike. We're doing it. We're going for a 53-man roster projection. Mike, how you feeling? July 15th, really hot day out there, but how are we doing? How are the vibes, and are you ready to put pen to paper here on what we think is going to be the roster for Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I can't wait to get into this show. This is always a fun one every year. We'll get to see how close or how far away we are with our roster projections heading into training camp. And can you believe it? It's only 8 days away. We're obviously going to be really active at training camp this year as a group with Trainwreck. We'll be at a bunch of the practices. So a lot of good content coming your way. And it's time for me to transition from the Sabres offseason to Bills training camp. So it's going to be fun these upcoming weeks.
Me too, because somebody from Crossing Swords has just been setting me up to get just taken down the last couple of days. But we're transitioning right now, right here. The roster. Let's get right into it, Mike. Let's start right from the top. We're just going to go offense right down the way you'd read the list, which starts with the easiest room that we can really start with, the quarterback room.
Depending on how you look at it. It might not be as easy as you think, but obviously
present your case, please. Present your case.
I think looks easy, but it's not guaranteed to be easy after Josh Allen. Obviously, he's safe. He's your number one. The question is, who's the number two quarterback? Is it Mitch Trubisky? Is it Mike White? I think Trubisky is going to be the backup, but who's to say that he might not have some competition for the number two spot heading into the season? Is it a lock that Trubisky is the backup? I don't know if it's a lock. And then practice squad, you obviously had Shane Buechele in the past. But, yeah, I think this is going to be Josh Allen and Mitch Trubisky.
I also think that's where we're going to end up. Do you think that there is a chance that they carry three at all? I just feel like they have too much competition to do it. So Buechele and White, though, for the practice squad is very interesting to me because they clearly like what Buechele offers. They like the skill set he has. Now, Shane Buechele was a guy who was highly recruited coming out. If you don't know his backstory, highly recruited coming out, played for Texas, was amongst a group of a ton of quarterbacks who were like, was this like Charlie Strong era? Like there was some maybe Tom Herman, something like that. Ended up having to transfer out of Texas, bounced around a little bit, but he has a lot of talent. And it's a guy who clearly the Bills think has a lot of arm talent. He's a mobile guy. Do you think that I feel like he's the more boom or bust potential than Mike White, who's just going to be steady hand. You know exactly what you're going to get from him on that practice squad. You know exactly the kind of guy he is in the room. What do you expect? Do you think they keep both of them on this practice squad? Do you have any inkling one way or the other on who they would keep, who you'd prefer to see in this position if for some reason they have to go down to one of these guys?
I mean, I would feel more comfortable with Mike White being the practice squad quarterback if it's one of those two, just because he has a lot more experience in game situations and has played a bunch of NFL contests in his career, while Shane Buechele has not had that level of experience. So if it's one of those two guys, I'd rather it be Mike White on the practice squad. But that's assuming that Mike White doesn't push Trubisky for the number two job. But like I said, I do think that my advantage would go to Mitch Trubisky at this point in time.
All right, so we're in lockstep, so we're going to lock those two in. So we have two people down here now. Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky, roster locks. Let's go to the running backs. Mike, James Cook, Ray Davis, Darrington Evans, Frank Gore Jr., Ty Johnson. Now, this feels like we pretty much know who's going to be here. But the James Cook situation of it all, what are we expecting next week? James Cook, do we think he's just going to be there at camp? Do we think he's going to hold out? Is he going to hold in? What's going to be the contract situation? Because it's been quiet, real quiet, but we know that reporting to training camp is a big tension point in these contract negotiations. generally throughout NFL history. So what are you expecting here with this whole ordeal as we head into camp?
I'm really not expecting anything crazy with the running back room. I do expect James Cook to be there. The fact that he even showed up for mandatory minicamp, I think, was a good sign for the Bills. To me, I don't have any inside information. It doesn't seem like there's going to get done contract-wise between Cook and the Bills. Who knows? Maybe they could have had talks between then and now, but I'm not going to assume that. So the way James Cook will maximize his contract value next offseason is by going out and having a great year this season. I think the way he does that is by showing up for camp and showing the Bills he's committed to the season and trying to win a Super Bowl with the squad. So the running back room, it's pretty simple to me. You had a three-headed monster last year led by James Cook. He's your number one. Ray Davis, you selected him in the 4th round just last season. He's clearly the number 2. And Ty Johnson was a surprising number 3 who was really good in the pass game as well. And obviously we include Reggie Gilliam in this list as well. So he's your number 4. That's where you kind of cap it at running back. There are some good options for practice squad. Obviously, Darrington Evans is talented, and Frank Gore Jr. has ability. But the only way either of those guys get called up is if there's injuries in front of them that force them to be called up from the practice squad.
Yep, we're in lockstep. I had Gilliam on my list that I pulled from, I believe it was Pro Football Reference. I pulled my list from. They have him listed as a tight end, so he's down there, but he's a lock on my list as well with the backs. The same group there, and I expect Cook to be there as well. I think he tried. He shot his shot. Good attempt, but I think now it's time for business. They know what the deal is. Come out there, perform, and we'll see what happens. Good point by John here about the backup quarterbacks all in the last season of their contract. That is noteworthy because we've seen them switch around that position throughout the tenure of Josh Allen. Let's get to the wide receivers. This is an interesting.
I'll let you go first with the receivers.
I'm sure you will. We've got Christian Wilkerson, Jalen Virgil, Laviska Shenault, Tyrell Shavers, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Caden Prather, Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore, KJ Hamler, Stephen Gosnell, Keon Coleman, and Kelly Akahorari. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. Akahorari. I only have them keeping 5, Mike, to be honest. I think it's Shakir, Samuel, Palmer, Moore, Coleman. I think they put Virgil and Shavers on the practice squad and just roll with the 5. I think those are the 5 strongest. And when I went through the rest of the roster, I didn't really know how to take anybody else off either. I could see Shenault or Shavers or Virgil making it, maybe at a 6 spot if they decide to keep 6. I could be talked into keeping 6. I'm not married to this, but that's where I ended up when I went through this exercise. I ended up with just those are the 5 trusty guys. Let's roll into the season. And honestly, when I look at that room, I'm not too upset about it. Not too mad.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of Bills fans, depending on when you ask them this offseason, they would tell you a lot of different things about this Bills receiver room. And ESPN clearly didn't like their receiver room because they ranked the Bills receivers / tight ends and running backs as the 28th weapons group in the NFL, which to me is absolutely crazy. Tell me how that group of weapons ended up going 13-4 last year. Realistically, like probably 14-3 because they sat a lot of guys in that New England game to end the season. Yeah, I know they're not the strongest unit in the world, but just having a top 10 running back and James Cook alone and the depth at running back. And you look at tight end, Dalton Kincaid made honorable mention for the top 10 list on ESPN. So you have a top 10 running back, tight end that's close to top 10. You have a close to 1,000-yard receiver in Khalil Shakir, but yet you have the 28th group of weapons in the NFL. Something doesn't add up to me there. You're either saying that Josh Allen is the greatest quarterback around, which they never seem to give him credit for being that, or you might have unbelievable coaching, but that doesn't ever seem to be the case either with Sean McDermott or Joe Brady. So something doesn't add up with those rankings. But I have the same exact room as you do at wide receiver. This is pretty cut and dry for me. Khalil Shakir is your number 1. Obviously, he's playing out of the slot, but he's your high volume guy. To me, Josh Palmer's your number 2 volume guy, but he's going to be your number 1 on the outside vertical threat. Guy that's going to probably have upwards of 50 catches, 50 to 60 catches, close to 750 to 850 yardage wise. Keon Coleman's that unknown number 3. Obviously, second round pick a year ago. Decent rookie year. I know people were hard on him, but anytime you average close to 20 yards per reception for over 500 yards as a rookie, I can't be killing you for that. If he improves on what he did as a rookie, that's going to be really intriguing to see what he can do as a second-year player. That's a good number 2 outside receiver. And then that 4-5 battle between Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore, I really don't think you can go wrong with either person. Samuel was a bit of a disappointment last year, but we all know what he can bring to the table from a speed element, and then obviously the short passing game. Elijah Moore, another big unknown. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has had around 60 catches the last 2 years in Cleveland, over 500 yards. A lot of Bills fans are high on Elijah Moore, but let's be real, he has not done it at a high level so far in the NFL. People can point to the 60 receptions that he's had around the last 2 years, but he's also averaged under 10 yards per reception both of those years, which are very low numbers. You can blame the quarterbacks, but he was also a number 2 receiver the last couple years. So there's a reason why teams waited until after the draft to sign him. There's a reason why he only got $5 million. If he was truly in high demand, like Bills Mafia acts like this guy is a 1,000-yard receiver, some other team would have grabbed him. Some other team would have paid him more money. There's a reason Josh Palmer is getting what he's getting versus Elijah Moore, and that's also going to play a role in the pecking order. But I am intrigued by Elijah Moore, what he can bring to the table. He definitely is speedy, and I like what he can bring. I hope Tyrell Shavers is a practice squad guy. It was nice seeing him get his touchdown last year. I do believe he has some potential. There's obviously a few other guys, KJ Hamler, and there's a couple other guys that you could look at on the squad that could really possibly contribute. But a lot of practice squad guys outside of the top 5. And Laviska Shenault maybe has a outside chance of making this team as a returner. But it's really just the top 5 that I have faith in. And then after that, even Prather, I mean, what are the odds he makes it as a rookie, as a 7th-round pick? So I like the 5, and then after it, all questions.
Yeah, and I think that's why they take Prather. That's why they bring in Virgil. That's why they bring in Shenault. Have some lottery tickets there. Maybe one of those guys pops, earns a spot in camp. But our comment section would like them to keep 6. They're disagreeing with us. I'd like them to keep 6 from John. Joey says we're probably going to keep 6. That we got dissension among who the punt returner is going to be. Is it going to be Elijah Moore? Is it going to be Shenault? And I think that's a part of all of this too. Is it like the Codrington, Shenault, Elijah Moore competition at punt returner and kick returner is going to be a big factor into who gets these spots here. Because as we talked about with the new, someone else mentioned it in here too, with the new kickoff rules, Steve mentioning changing the position groups and who we're keeping and everything else. Yeah, I think that's the reason they bring Shenault in, because if they think he's a weapon in the kick return game, then yeah, he might earn a spot. But I'm sticking with 5. Because didn't they go in, if I'm not mistaken, they went into last year with 5, right? When everybody thought they were going in with 6.
A lot of times they'll end up with 5, and they'll just stash a couple people on the practice squad, and they'll call them up occasionally when they need them. My real issue, and you'll figure this out more as we go along with this, I have I don't know how they're going to fill certain defensive spots. They almost have an overabundance of defensive players. So
I agree.
That's why I kept 5 receivers, because there's a group of 3 or 4 players that I would be fine with, like 2 of them going on the practice squad. And I don't think they'll have trouble getting multiple players to the practice squad. While defensively, there's a few guys that if they get rid of, it might be tougher to get them on a practice squad going forward.
Yep, we're in the same boat, I think, when we went through this whole thing and started looking at it. So, but that's it for the receivers. So let's go to the tight end group, which is really, we don't really have to talk too in depth about the tight end group. Pretty much Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, Jackson Hawes will be that group. Hawes probably going to get a lot of times on special teams and as a blocking tight end. So excited to see that group. Do you have any note on a Dalton Kincaid resurgence or Dawson Knox or anything? if the guy was as hurt as he was last year, and I've had a theme today, Mike, arguing with Buffalo sports fans, so I'm willing to die on this hill with Dalton Kincaid. I'm not willing to give up on a third-year player just yet. So I have faith that Kincaid can work after working through some injuries last year, can kind of bounce back and even be better than he ever has been. That's what I'm expecting, honestly.
Yeah, I do think Dalton Kincaid's going to take a step forward. I actually I did a show with Cover One recently where I named Dalton Kincaid one of my breakout players of this year. And it sounds weird calling it a breakout performer, but you look at him, he's averaged basically close to 60, I think high 50 receptions the first 2 years of his career. And for most young tight ends, that would be pretty incredible to start your career, 70 plus receptions 1 year, and then being averaging over 500 yards. But for Kincaid and all the expectations he had coming out of college, it feels like a disappointment to most Bills fans, to the point where some people are saying he's not a good player. Well, let me tell you, if bad tight ends don't average over 50 receptions for over 500 yards the first 2 years out of college. So I do think that Kincaid has an ability to take his game to another level. There were missed opportunities with him on the field last year. And for as good as Josh Allen is at quarterback, sometimes he's a little inaccurate and misses guys. And Dalton Kincaid was the unlucky recipient of some of that last season. So I do think there's room for Kincaid to take a step forward. I do have some intrigue in Jackson Hawes and how he could fit in coming out of Georgia Tech. Obviously, Dawson Knox, what you see is what you get at this point. Nothing flashy, but a serviceable tight end that knows what to do. And then you have the offensive line. A lot of different ways this could go from a depth perspective. Obviously, the starting five is pretty locked in stone, but I don't know if you want me to go first or if you want to go. Let's move on to the offensive line right now.
All right, let's get right into it. We have a lot of options here. Cedric Van Granger, Osiris Torrance, Chase Lunt, Kendrick Green, Tylen Grable, Richard Garage. I know I said that wrong. Alec Anderson, Travis Clayton, Ryan Van DeMark, Spencer Brown, Deion Dawkins, Rush Reimer, Connor McGovern, David Edwards, Jacob Bayer on our offensive line list. Honestly, this came down to me, Grable or Clayton as the final spot, but I feel like it's pretty much a return from last year with the group that we had. Edwards, McGovern feels safe, Dawkins, Spencer Brown, obviously, manning the tackles there. Torrance is gonna start again. Van Granger is going to be the backup center again. Van DeMark's going to be that tackle position. Alec Anderson's going to be that swing guy. So really Grable and Clayton, I feel like they keep one of them. What did you have though, Mike?
Yeah, it's funny doing this offensive roster projection because it seems pretty cut and dry, pretty obvious going into it. My offensive line really didn't have many changes. Now, obviously, there's a couple players that stepped up last year. Alec Anderson really made his mark. Ryan Van DeMark showed that he's worthy depth. The starting five it's not changing. You're going to obviously go left to right. Deion Dawkins, David Edwards, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, Spencer Brown. And I ended up keeping nine people overall. Cedric Van Granger as the backup center. And then I kept Grable as the ninth offensive lineman. Obviously, he played in a few games last year, and I think that would give him an advantage over some of the other players. Obviously, Lunt was someone that they drafted in the late rounds. Maybe he has a chance of sneaking his way on the roster. But right now, late round pick, haven't seen him in person. It's hard for me to really confidently say he has a spot on this team. So I'm going to go with 9 with Grable being the final guy.
And Clayton, if I remember correctly, he can still be on the international contract, right, for the practice squad. I believe he's
I don't know that one way or another.
I'm not. I believe last year that's how I think I saw a tweet about it this year because he is British, so I think he can still play on the international contract. So I imagine that would lean into where he would go to. Zach Davidson's birthday today, according to John Roberts. So happy birthday, Zach Davidson! Even though we just cut you from the Buffalo Bills like 4 minutes ago, but hopefully you're having a good birthday and don't take that to heart at all, sir. And Connor McGovern does need to get extended. I agree with that. He was a revelation last year, but hey, I trust the financial vision we have right now going into this. Let's get to the really this is where we're gonna make our bones, Mike. Right now on this show, the defensive line. I mean, we got a lot of options here. We got the usual suspects who we know are the locks here. Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver. We can say are complete locks. Joey Bosa, obviously, Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt, even though they're suspended, they're going to be on this roster. Deion Walker is going to be on this roster. News about Landon Jackson today. On the PUP list as a transaction went through at the end of the day. Now, a lot of the reporting is that he should be fine at the start of camp next week, but still a little concerning. Something new that popped up. He didn't have any lingering issues or anything other beforehand. We got Javon Solomon, AJ Epineza, you got Daquan Jones, Dwayne Carter, and then you got Casey Rogers, Zion Logue, Paris Shand, Hayden Harris, Marcus Harris to complete the group for camp.
For this, let's combine the D ends and the D tackles. And we'll just go all at once with this. So I'll start it. Obviously, you have Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt that are suspended. So that's going to impact this roster right now. Typically, you would have 53 people. We're going to end up having 55. And at the end of the show, I'll tell who I'd probably cut to get it to 53. But in this scenario, D tackle and in D end, I have 5 each going into the regular season. I'd like to keep 6. But behind at the end of this depth, there is really no reason to keep an extra person beyond what the 6 that we like. So it'll be 5 opening day for the first 6 weeks of the season. So at D tackle, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, TJ Sanders, I believe he'll get signed. This whole second round pick thing will get figured out at some point in the near future. Dwayne Carter and Deion Walker, those are my 5 at D tackle, and then Larry Ogunjobi will be the 6 once he returns from his suspension. And at D end, Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa, those are the 2 starters. I know Bosa's coming off an injury, but it sounds like he's going to be good for training camp. AJ Epineza, Landon Jackson, Javon Solomon, and Michael Hoyt. So 12 total when everybody is healthy and good, but 10 going into the regular season. Now, I don't know if I love having 5 each at those spots, but knowing that there's one guy at both of those positions coming back 6 weeks into the season, I think it's a risk that they can take and probably will take as the roster is currently constructed.
Our brains are too in sync sometimes, Mike, and that's pretty much exactly where I landed, except I do want to have the conversation about a Daquan Jones or Dwayne Carter potential cut here, because I do think those are the guys with bringing in Walker and bringing in Sanders. Those are the 2 guys that you could look at that maybe they're unhappy with from last year, not producing. Now, Carter got hurt. I'm not saying that he's going to get cut. Maybe he'd get traded. Maybe it would be something like that. But those are 2 guys who I feel like are going to be battling more and are lower in the hierarchy and battling for snaps compared to what we're looking at when you look at what Ed Oliver's obviously going to play, what they invested into Ogunjobi and Hoyt, and what they just invested in the draft with Walker and with Sanders. So I'm just thinking there's I feel like this D line is ripe for a surprise cut, and maybe it's Daquan Jones is really where I was looking, where if they just look at him in camp and they're just like, man, I don't know if it's worth it at this point, and did you just rather have the young guys for the pop and everything else? I could see that, and that's where you slim this down one spot.
I can't see them moving on from either of those guys right now. Not saying it's not possible, but the fact that you're already slim at D tackle entering the season, minus Larry Ogunjobi, you cut Daquan Jones or Dwayne Carter, you're down to 4 for the first 6 weeks of the season. So maybe that's something that they can do after Ogunjobi returns, but I don't think that's a risk they're willing to take at this moment in time. Daquan, his play was sporadic, but he is a veteran. He is a respected player in this locker room. Dwayne Carter, didn't have the greatest rookie year, but he was a third-round pick just 1 year ago. I don't believe that Brandon Beane or Sean McDermott are going to want to move on from a guy that high this quickly in his career. So I don't see that as a possibility. But you never know. Anything can happen. But I think they'll hold on to both of those guys at this current moment.
I'm more convinced about Dwayne. I'm not convinced about Daquan Jones. I do think that I'm on the lookout for a surprise there. I really wasn't impressed by the end of the year, and they have a lot of young guys who a lot of mouths to feed on that D line. So we'll see. But let's get to the linebackers. So we're keeping 12 technically, and then two suspended, but 12 defensive linemen, which is it's a high number. But I'm with you. I think at this point, with the way that the suspensions worked out and everything, you kind of just have to do it. And the way that they built through this team, they need the options because we don't know who the guys are going to be ready to step up yet. So linebackers. Let's get into the linebackers here. We've got the starters, Bernard and Milano, Dorian Williams, Ulofoshio, Joel Andreessen, Balin Spector, Shaq Thompson, Keontae Jenkins is our group going into camp. Mike, I have them keeping 7 linebackers here. Actually, no, 6. 6 linebackers here. Cutting Balin Spector and Keontae Jenkins. I think it's time we bail on this on the Balin Spector experiment, and I'm happy with the 6 linebackers if we keep Andreessen, Bernard, Milano, Williams, Ulofoshio, and then Shaq Thompson makes the roster as the veteran guy stopgap. And maybe he's got something left. Who knows? Maybe he's got something in this defense, but that's where I'm at. What about you?
So this is one of the few that we have a little bit of a disagreement on. I do have them with 6 linebackers. Some of them are pretty simple. Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, obviously they're starting. Dorian Williams, pretty easy. I think Joe Andreessen was pretty safe after the rookie season he had in special teams impact. Where I struggled was after those 4 and what to do. I wasn't sure their thoughts on Edifon Ulofoshio and if he's a guy that they're planning on keeping or not. Shaq Thompson, he's had a respected career in Carolina. He's a little up there in age. Did they sign him to be practice squad depth, or did they sign him to be a fill-in backup if needed? If Milano or Bernard go down, I don't know that right now at this current moment. And Balin Spector, I know fans are hard on him, but he has a skill set that still fits what the Bills like defensively. And I don't know if they're willing to really move on from him yet at this point. Yeah, he doesn't look good when he plays in games, but how many backup linebackers come into games and look really good? Not a ton, Jake. So I think Balin Spector is still part of this team. So I have him on my roster. I have them cutting Ulofoshio, and I have Shaq Thompson making the team because I do believe they value veteran depth at the linebacker position and want somebody that they know is probably comfortable in their system that can at least, maybe if he doesn't have the physical traits and ability anymore at his age, he can still come in and know what he's doing. And the Bills value that, as we've seen in the past. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if Shaq Thompson ended up being a practice squad fit at linebacker and they end up keeping Ulofoshio since they invested a draft pick in him just 1 year ago. But Balin Spector, I wouldn't be surprised to see him gone, but I don't have it in me to have him be one of the guys cut right now.
I don't know what you're holding on to, Mike. I don't know what it is.
What their profile, what they go after.
I think Ulofoshio's role is special teams more than anything else. They need they lost a lot of special teams snaps from last year, and he's a guy that they drafted with the profile to be a special teams guy.
If they keep Ulofoshio, there might be a better chance of them cutting Shaq Thompson than Balin Spector.
I just can't. I just don't want to see that.
They have a type. It's all of these short speedier linebackers. Look at
He
Joe.
can't, but he just doesn't. He's not
Look at-
healthy enough. That's the problem. They have two of them who get hurt all the time. That's the issue.
All of them are going to get hurt. Know why they get hurt? Because that's the type of linebackers the Bills target. They target under.
Well, then I would like good ones, Mike, if they're going to do
not
that. I
gonna
don't think
get-
Balin
you're not-
Spector is a good
Jake,
option here.
It's how they
I've
run-
seen enough. That's it. I've just seen
Jake,
enough from
it's
him.
how they run their defense. You're talking about a
hear you.
backup right now. Is it any surprise? Terrell Bernard, undersized but quick. Joe Andreessen, undersized but quick.
I hear you.
Balin Spector, undersized but quick. Dorian Williams, quick. All of these guys have similar builds. And guess what? They all get hurt. Why? Because they're undersized and they're playing linebacker and they're getting hit all the time. So they need backups here's the thing. If you have backups that are completely different body build than the starters and they are completely different athletic traits, you have to adjust your defense to fit them in overall. That's why you have backups that are similar traits to your starters. So when your starters go down, you can ideally stick with what you're doing. So as much as we hate Balin Spector, there's a reason they have Balin Spector. And I'm not saying he's a perfect fit, but they obviously like him for a reason. And I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from him, but I'm going to give him a slight lean to stay.
I'm just saying I think I've seen enough. But we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one. We got 6 regardless. So we're at 39 going into the DBs, which is let's do the corner. Well, I don't know because there's so many.
Let's do corners first, and then we can go to safety.
All right. Well, how are we talking about Cam Lewis here? What are we doing with him?
He's a hybrid. You can put him in whatever category.
But he's made. I'll
let you put him wherever you want, and then I'll put him wherever I want.
Okay.
But we can go over. I don't know if you want to go first here or you want me to go first. I'm going to get a tweet out while you're speaking.
All right. I was just going to read them off first. So we got Tre'Davious White, Maxwell Hairston, Christian Benford, Dorian Strong, Kamarian Wilson, Taron Johnson, Dane Jackson, Jamarcus Ingram, Daquan Hardy, Corey Couch, Brandon Codrington at the cornerback position. And I don't think I missed anybody there. I think we have. Yeah, I think we're all set there. And this is another spot where the bottom of the competition is going to be really interesting here. So I think the locks are obviously Benford, Hairston, Johnson, White, Jackson as the 5. You don't think so?
Maybe I should just give my stuff before we say what's locks and what's not.
Okay. I have Tre'Davious White, Dorian Strong, Taron Johnson, Dane Jackson, Maxwell Hairston, Christian Benford, and Cam Lewis, whatever you want to put him at, as my corner safety room. So
right now I have 7 corners on the team, depending on how you want to label certain people. So my locks, Christian Benford and Maxwell Hairston are obviously locks. Those are your starting corners right there. Taron Johnson is your nickel corner. What I have after that is Trey White. I believe he's going to be the number 3 corner to open the year. Jamarcus Ingram, Cam Lewis, and Dorian Strong. I have Dane Jackson getting cut and then going to the practice squad. It's not that Dane Jackson isn't a good player, but tell me why Dane Jackson deserves to be ahead of Jamarcus Ingram on the Bills roster as it presently sits. Jamarcus Ingram worked his way up the Bills cornerback room last year and did really solid when given opportunities and is a little bit somebody that you have the ability to move around once in a while. Cam Lewis, obviously, you could put him at safety. You can put him at all over the secondary. He's valuable. Dorian Strong was an interesting one for me. Maybe you could say he can be cut and you can find room for Dane Jackson. But here's my issue I had with going with the cornerback room. You have 2 rookie corners that you drafted late in this draft. And I can't see them cutting both of them and trying to send them both down to the practice squad. I don't know if I give the advantage to Dorian Strong or if I give the advantage to Jordan Hancock, but one of those two guys is going to make the Bills roster, in my opinion. And when it comes down to it, you're probably going to have to cut somebody like Dane Jackson in order for that to happen. Because I don't believe that Cam Lewis and Jamarcus Ingram are at that point where you move on from them. So I'll say this. If Dane Jackson makes the Bills, I'm okay with it. But he's your fourth corner in that scenario. And I'm not talking like fourth corner, like counting Taron Johnson as a 3. I'm talking like fourth corner. He's behind all the outside guys that matter. So he's a fringe player right now, in my opinion.
I hear you, but I think it's a guy that they would have liked to keep if they weren't shedding a ton of salary last year. And he was injured a lot last year, and that's part of the reason that he, as John brought up in here, part of the reason he didn't pop as much. And it's a guy who knows this system as well too. I think it's a clear competition. I think Dane is firmly in this competition. And Ingram, I wouldn't be surprised if Ingram makes it. I think Strong, again, I have Strong making this roster because of what they feel for him as a special teams profile, because they really need to replace special team snaps, and he fits, and he's a guy that they invested a higher pick, like you said, in this round, not higher, but invested a pick this year into him. So I mean, I could go either way. I think Jackson and Ingram is probably where the competition is, though. And I don't think they brought Dane Jackson in just thinking of him as a camp body or practice squad guy. I think this is a guy who played very, very important snaps for them in huge games. And I don't think they got rid of him because he was bad. I think it was as much of a thing where they were shedding a ton of salary. And it was a way to thin the margins out and get some time for other guys, but more, Benford popping last year and everything else. But think of how much Dane Jackson played on this defense, and when we didn't expect him to play in those years. So I just think this team likes him more than most people do. And there's a reason that he got brought back with the swiftness, even though they have all this competition in the room.
That's perfectly fair. I'm not against it. There's so many corners on this roster right now, and you look at how they attack the draft. They selected 3 corners in this draft. They clearly are saying we don't love what we have in our corner room at the moment. And then when you factor in that Cam Lewis is kind of a hybrid, maybe Jamarcus Ingram is on the outside. Maybe I'm over valuing Jamarcus Ingram, but it just seemed like they've had him for a few seasons now. I believe they like what Jamarcus Ingram brings to the table. And the fact that Dane Jackson, things didn't work out in Carolina. And if we're being realistic, if they were to release Dane Jackson, what are the odds he lands in a favorable situation on another team? Probably not likely. He's probably not starting anywhere else. Could he possibly make a roster? Yeah, maybe he could be on another team's roster. But at that point, if he gets cut late August, his best opportunity might just be going to the Bills practice squad. Maybe they take that risk to protect a young player on their roster to prevent someone from stealing one of their young corners that they just selected, while safely putting Dane Jackson on a practice squad and being able to keep him as veteran depth as possible. I could see it going either way.
I think they set it up to just be a competitive room and let the chips fall where they may. This is the team, like, as much as I hear what you're saying about protecting like some of these guys, if it's a margin where it's a guy you want to have around for a Super Bowl run, I'd rather do that. Like, we're trying to win a Super Bowl this year. If it's losing a guy that you'd like to keep who was a 6th-round pick, and it's the difference between protecting him and keeping a guy that you think can step in and start in a game this year, I'd lean toward the guy that you can start this year. That's just where I'm at. And that's why I think you take a ton of swings on the guys.
But here's the thing.
There's going to be a couple guys that fall through.
You are right. Like, they're just trying to put together the most competitive room possible. But this is a franchise that gave Christian Benford a starting spot over a 1st-round pick as a 6th-round rookie. So
that's why I'm saying the room's set up to be competitive.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with what you're saying. My point is, if one of those young players shows potential, I think they'll go with the potential over a veteran that has maybe had his best years already in front of it.
Yeah, That's fair. That's completely fair. But I think they really got to show it too. I don't think it's like they're coming in otherwise with an upper hand or anything. I think this is a real genuine. Hey, this camp for me is like big boy camp. Like that's why I'm so excited about the Hard Knocks. Like it's such a different scenario than we've ever seen for Hard Knocks, where it's like that's like it's not a team. Like it's everybody's kind of in it for their own things. Whatever. This is gonna be really interesting to see how these battles on the margins go for a team that's in the position the Bills are in. So really excited to see that. Safeties, Mike. Let's get into it. We already talked a bunch about Cam Lewis, Jordan Hancock, Daryl Porter, Damar Hamlin, Taylor Rapp, Wande Owens, Derek Forrest, Cole Bishop. Who do you have for the Bills keeping in this group?
So I thought I was going to go into this season with 4 safeties, and I ended up with only 3 after how things went. And the reason I feel like I can get away with it is because Cam Lewis has the ability to be interchangeable. At the end of the day, I feel like it's going to end up being 4. But right now, I have obviously Taylor Rapp as their starting safety, Cole Bishop, and Damar Hamlin. And I have Derek Forrest being cut. And it really was just a numbers game. You look at some of these other positions, and I just couldn't fit in a 4th safety. Now, like I said, I'm acknowledging I'm probably going to be wrong, and Forrest probably makes the team somehow. But when I was going through it, there was other guys that were more deserving to make the team. Now we'll see how things go in training camp. And then another question is Damar Hamlin in jeopardy of being cut. Could Forrest make it over Damar Hamlin? I think absolutely that could be in play. Damar obviously started last year, was a surprise starter, but didn't get much of a market. Tried to test free agency. That didn't work out. Ends up coming back to Buffalo, probably in a battle for a starting role, but we think they're probably going to give an edge to Cole Bishop with that, having been an early round pick just last year. So if Damar Hamlin comes out, doesn't look good compared to Forrest, he could be a surprise cut, in my opinion. And now we're far enough removed from everything that has happened a couple years ago that now it's strictly just about football. And I'm not saying it ever wasn't about football, but the first season after the incident, they obviously didn't activate him for several games. And then last year was an incredible story to see him start. At this point in time, it's all about what's on the field. And this is a good comment. Hamlin, if I don't know the contract situations, but if he does have the guaranteed money, that does give him a leg up. But entering the season, it's all going to be about how do you perform on the field. The Bills feel like they're very close to winning a Super Bowl, and they can't let money be the ultimate deciding factor in their decisions. They have to go with what's the best option for them on the field.
So this is where our biggest difference has come into play here, because I have them keeping 5. Counting Cam Lewis, whatever. I have them keeping Hamlin, Rapp, Forrest, and Bishop because I have them cutting Daquan Jones. That's where the numbers game came down, is I took the defensive line spot away and added it to the secondary room. And that's where it is. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut Forrest or Hamlin, though, and I think you're exactly right that those are the 2 spots that those are the 2 guys that you would look at, because Cam Lewis can easily fill in that 4th role with the versatility that he really brings. But I think Rapp and Bishop are pretty well positioned to be the starters this year. A lot of pressure, I think, honestly, on Cole Bishop. Not that it's like make or break for his career or anything like that, but they're going to ask a lot of him this year. So I hope that he can pull through. I have faith in them being able to coach him up on everything they've been able to do with safeties and the secondary rooms over their career. But I think that we're pretty much in lockstep. I would keep Forrest and cut somebody on the D line, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go lighter and maybe try to keep Forrest around on their practice squad as well in that option. There's a lot of different, that's the thing, is we're breaking down there's a lot of different machinations they can do where they're keeping all the guys that we're talking about some form on their roster and just trying to figure out what the best way to utilize the different levers they can pull to maintain their rights and everything else with the young guys and everything here. It's an interesting dilemma. It's a really big puzzle that is going to be vital to the Bills winning the Super Bowl this year. It's not an easy task. I don't envy Brandon Beane for having to do that this particular training camp, because it's going to be competitive. Like, I'm excited for you, Mike, to be able to be there so much, and for everybody at Trainwreck who's going to be covering it and be there, and just all the fans and everything, because I really think this is going to be a fun camp to watch, because the urgency in the organization, but also just the way this roster is set up. It's not a bunch of guys who have been established like vets, like the 2022 Bills. You know what I mean? The 2023 Bills. It's guys who got a taste last year, but it's a young team who's still really hungry. And the attention with Hard Knocks is going to make guys feel some type of way, even just subconsciously. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I can't wait. There's a lot on the line. It feels like this is the Josh Allen 2.0 era, where I'm going to talk about like Josh Allen's elite tiers, not what preceded that in 2018 and 2019. But he had that first run with guys like Diggs and Davis, and you had the defense with Poyer and Hyde and obviously those guys. And now this feels like the 2.0, where it's Khalil Shakir, it's Palmer, it's James Cook. And then you have a solid offensive line, probably the best offensive line in Josh Allen's career. Defensively, you have all these youngsters that are now getting extended, like Benford, Rousseau, Bernard. And this is the group that last year, it was a transition year. It was, we're getting rid of all these older veterans. There's a void. And then who's going to step up to take their places? And that led to a lot of uncertainty with the Bills roster. And what did we see? We saw that the culture and what is currently established is pretty strong, and that the cupboard wasn't bare. There was a lot of people waiting for their opportunity and stepping up when the opportunity presented itself. And right now, with those guys having another year experience, it feels like a person like Benford is going to take that next step, that a person like Bernard or Kincaid or Shakir can take that next step. So my belief, just looking at the way the roster is currently constructed, you have about a 3-year Super Bowl window. Now, as long as you have Josh Allen, you're going to have the opportunity to make runs, and your Super Bowl window is never fully closed. But I think just looking at their roster, they have a 3-year prime window where you're not just having a chance. This is like the thick of it. Like, this is, if you had like a 7-year period, this is that core 3 years where it's like you have to take advantage of it, because eventually after 3-4 years, some of these guys that you have extensions, they're going to fade a little bit. They're not going to be worth the money that they're getting. And then you're going to have to be more economical with how you spend. You're going to have more hits on lesser paid players. So this is the time where you have guys locked up. The contracts make sense. They're entering the prime of their careers. The Bills have to take advantage of this opportunity with Josh, especially as he approaches 30 a year from now. So I like this roster. We didn't even name the specialists, but obviously Reed Ferguson, Tyler Bass. I don't know if you named the punter. That's going to actually be a battle. I went with Brad Robbins over Jay Camarda, and then Brandon Codrington is my returner on this team. But this is a Super Bowl caliber roster, and it's funny because I still feel like we're at a point where you look across the league, you hear analysts speaking about the Bills, and they continue to doubt the talent on this team. And I don't believe it's because the talent is weak. I feel a lot of it is the talent is young. They haven't done it for a long time. And because of that, they're not established names across the league like what the Bills had before. If you ask people across the league a couple years ago, they would tell you Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis was an unbelievable wide receiver duo. I like this room better. I like this room better. I like Khalil Shakir. I like Josh Palmer. I'm a fan of what Keon can do and Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel. It's not elite, but they complement each other. They have different roles. That's when Josh Allen just had the best of his best season, when he was forcing the ball to one guy. So I think a lot of analysts that watch the league, the entire league, they don't spend enough time just focusing on this or that. And I believe a lot of them, because of that, they look at numbers, they look at PFF grades, and they don't realize what the Bills really have on both sides of the ball. And to me, let these guys have another year of production like Shakir, Bernard, Rousseau, and all these other guys. And I believe by the end of the season, some of these guys that the rest of the league is sleeping on are going to become household names, especially if they're playing on a winner like the Bills and Buffalo makes another run in the playoffs to a conference championship. And if they get to a Super Bowl, guarantee some of these guys are going to start becoming stars across the league.
Absolutely. And this is a great achievement of mine that Matt shouted me out along with you, Mike. So thank you, Matt, for giving me that. I cannot wait to see what, like, guys, Hard Knocks is going to be so much fun because I just want to see the urgency. Everything you just said, Mike, like, I think these guys tasting that the way that they did last year it doesn't feel the same as it did 5 years ago, where it felt like it was too early, even where it was like, man, like they really punched above their weight to get here and they're happy to be here. Last year, it feels like a genuine disappointment to this group that they missed an opportunity. There's no happy to be here energy from us. There's no happy to be here energy from this organization. Right. And I feel like I didn't go back and dissect, the post-season press conferences or anything else from 2020 before making this statement, but I guarantee you the tenor was different from Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott too, from at the end of that season to what the end of the last season turned away. And I just think that experience is so invaluable when we're talking about trying to win in this league. Like what Kansas City has been able to do is unheard. Like it's very few teams have been able to do it, but winning one usually takes climbing the mountain and getting knocked down and gaining that experience and everything else. And I just think everybody on this roster, it's just like you said, the build that they're looking for, the type of guys they're looking for. It feels like just the right group at this right time in this moment in today's NFL. And I can't wait to get started. I've been thinking about fall since it's been 95 degrees for the better part of the last 5 weeks. All I can think about is fall. And so next Wednesday is like, let's go. Like we're here. We're ready. Like I'm ready for football all day, every day. Especially on today, today is the MLB All-Star game. So there's literally like, there's no, I don't even think there's WNBA basketball on. I think it's just the MLB All-Star game. And then maybe you could watch some overseas,
I'm bored out of my mind.
It's horrible. I don't know what I'm just talking to keep us all busy because I don't. Next up is putting on the All-Star game and acting like I'm
not even going to turn it on.
No, I'm not going to turn it on either. Actually, I'm lying. But this is where we're at though. We're ready for football, Mike. We need this. Next week's going to be crazy. Are you ready? Are you excited for camp?
I'm pumped about it. I mean,
I'm sure you are.
We will dive into a bigger announcement later, but Trainwreck is going to be at camp, and we're going to have a lot of content for people, and we'll you guys will see what type of content in just a little bit. It might go a little bit beyond what you guys expect out of Trainwreck Sports. So we can't wait for all of this to happen. I know personally I'm going to be at seven practices out of the 12 that are scheduled for training camp. So I can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Once training camp gets here, the rest of the summer just breezes by. Next thing you know, the preseason games are here. Then it's going to be the start of college football season in late August, and then it's NFL season. And we're talking about Josh Allen and enjoying the farewell season at Highmark Stadium, and it's unbelievable. One more year left at Highmark Stadium. And Jake, I know you're out in Chicago. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the new stadium, but it's getting there. The entire interior, all the concrete is down. The steel beams are all up. They just got to start putting that mesh exterior on and start decorating it. So it's getting a lot closer than what people think. And I just think about it all the time, Jake. End the farewell season with the Super Bowl and open the new stadium with a celebration. I know it sounds too storybook to be true, but if it could somehow happen, it would be the most fitting story for Buffalo fans ever to open a brand new stadium celebrating a championship in front of the football universe. I want to talk it into existence. That's how excited I am about the possibility.
Exactly. Speak it into existence. And if not, why not? Why not this year? And I don't know if it'll be worth all the hardship if it was this kind of perfect ending, but it's a pretty good consolation prize nonetheless. I will be back for one game this year to say my goodbyes to Highmark Stadium and say hello to the new Highmark Stadium for Thursday Night Football against the visiting Miami Dolphins, which I felt was the most apt and appropriate game to get back for seeing the Dolphins come in. And I've never been to Thursday night. I've been to Monday night, achieved Sunday night last year in the amazing game against the 49ers. So Thursday night. And then I'll also be there with some live coverage and live vlog footage for sure of Bills fans taking over Soldier Field for the Bills preseason game here in Chicago. I did try to get preseason tickets, Mike, for the Bills joint practice, and Josh Allen is not only a big deal in Buffalo because Bears season ticket holders bought all those tickets up before the general public even really got a sniff of those. So the Bills practice in Lake Forest will be sold out, a big rock star affair, I'm sure, for Josh Allen. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of Bills fans too, honestly, who will end up there. But exciting stuff ahead for training camp, and I'm excited for Hard Knocks too. Yeah, really, really excited to see what this looks like.
That'll be amazing to see. I know some people have been talking about the Bills might be a boring team because they're good and they do everything by the book. I don't care. I love any access. I watch Bills Embedded. I know what I'm getting into when I watch Bills Embedded. I know that's Bills team PR. I still love it. So give me the Hard Knocks. Give me all the content in the world. Any inside access that I don't previously have exposure to, I'm going to enjoy. Want to thank all the people that tuned in tonight, including Steve. I appreciate you reaching out to me before the show. He was actually asking if we were going to go on live today, so appreciate you tuning in. Steve's a master with making food. So just so you know, Jake, he is a pro at stuff like that. And
I didn't even know state cook-off was a thing. I need that in my life.
Steve is amazing. I need to get some food from him next time he's up. Matt, love it. Jake the Snake. Appreciate you tuning in, Matt. John, same thing. I appreciate you tuning in for this show, and everyone else that's been in the comment section tonight, including our co-host AJ, who unfortunately has been a little bit busy the past 2 weeks, but we hope to get him back on closer to the regular season. So that's in the works down the road. But yeah, another fun show, Jake. I think we only had one or two players different in our entire 53-man roster projection. So some years there's a lot of bickering and fighting back and forth. This year, I really have no issues with the way you did it. A couple slight differences, but there really isn't much to argue about. We're fighting about maybe the last guy or two on the roster, and outside of that, it's pretty straightforward in my opinion.
Let's go win a Super Bowl. That's all I want to do. That's Absolutely. All I really care about at this point. So I think this roster is set up. We'll put out our official projections shortly somehow before the training camp goes out, so we can keep our names attached to it. But yeah, Mike, this was great. Thank you everybody for joining and tuning in along. We'll be back next week as camp will be right about to be underway, and we'll have full coverage, as Mike was talking about, of training camp coming your way on Pay the Bills. So stay tuned for all of that, and in Trade Rec Sports. So stay tuned for all that. Shout out to our sponsors at Picasso's Pizza. Make sure you visit picassospizza.net. Get your Picasso's Pizza anywhere nationwide. For Mike Bunt, this is Jake Vico. We paid the bills. Have a great night, folks. Go Bills.